So in Pakistan or in Iran?
In Iran. So you have
Well, okay.
Baluchistan, and then you have Konarak, and Konarak is on that bay, Chahar
Yeah.
Bar Bay. Yeah.
So I just want to obviously we Iranians are really sensitive about not mixing any of our ethnic groups with the separatists, right? So I want to also make sure like Baluchis, our Iranian Baluchis are not the same as saying the separatist Baluchi groups in Iran. We always want to insist on the separatist group being a minority of any ethnic group that we mention in Iran. And are you suggesting that the United States will be working with the separatist groups, armed
No.
separatist groups? No. Okay, good. Because that would not be good. Okay, that's
Briefly
All right.
before we move on, Cat Lady has something to add to this.
Uh-oh.
all right.
I heard some rumors. I agree that it's worrying. I hope it's wrong that the U.S. is in contact with Azaris, Kurds, and Baluchis. I'm not sure. Maybe it's just rumors. It is worrying. I hope they do it in the right way at least. But one point about Armenia. The recognition is not the issue. Armenian governments have done all the wrong choices, whatever they could do them about Israel. And actually, the Armenian churches, even some of them, are very hostile to Israel. So it's more complicated. Let's say it this way.
Cat Lady, you could not be more correct. And just as the rabbinate in Israel is trying to take land from the Armenian church in Jerusalem and a few other areas, there are a lot of complicated issues here, but I think we should probably stick with the revolution in Iran right now.
Right. So yeah, let's move on.
If everyone is interested after Armin leaves, that could be a great topic for us to do a little deep dive on, as long as Armin wouldn't have too much FOMO.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, we have a question in the chat. Armin, you have spent probably the most time here looking at the IPP. Does it talk about the security and border situation starting day one?
Yeah, it does. It does talk about basically bringing stability and the steps that we need to take. It doesn't go into when it comes to safety and security. It doesn't go into a lot of details when it comes to controlling the armed forces. And I had the main editor of the IPP on my show in Persian, Saeed Qasim-Nejad, which is also his the main advisor of Prince Reza Pahlavi. And I asked them like, why is it like the most important part is the military, like for us to know how we're going to stabilize the situation from a military perspective on day one. Why does this plan not go into a lot of detail with regards to that? And on the show, he said, like, well, because that part shouldn't be public. Like, you don't want to show the Islamic Republic exactly all the plans that we're having to like because a lot of because guys, we're talking about the first 100 first 100 days, the booklet that we've been studying a lot, that's the first 100 days, right? So what comes when it comes to securing our borders after the first 100 days, that's a completely different topic. And actually a lot of it is going to also be after the transitional period and determined by the elected government. But obviously the first 100 days, what they're going to do to try to secure the country from a military perspective, those plans cannot be shared publicly because a lot of it involves the already communications that Princess Pahlavi's team is having with people from the Artesh or other people from inside Iran, right? So that is the part that they cannot discuss yet. But I haven't studied the other parts of the IPP with regards to their, border security, especially on the eastern borders. But I do know for a fact that that is the most important area when it comes to border security, because a lot of when we're talking about border integrity of Iran, what threatens Iran from our eastern borders is a lot more significant than our western borders, because our east we are basically the countries on our eastern borders, they're kind of semi-failed states, so we can't really rely on them as allies to basically hold their borders. Like at least on the western borders, there's some sort of government that also wants to have some border security. On the east, we're dealing with Pakistan and Afghanistan. They have no control over their borders, right? So it's completely chaotic. It's also a lot more poor. It's also water shortage situation is a lot worse on the eastern borders. And the Islamic Republic has spent all of its military budget focusing on destroying Israel at some point. So, like spending all of that money on ballistic missiles, your ballistic missiles are not going to do anything on border security. So all of the enrichment uranium, all of the ballistic missiles and cruise missiles, they're useless when it comes to border security. We need to be reinvesting in a army that is mainly focused on securing our eastern borders, which means that we're going to like that is not going to be the same military assets designed to bomb Tel Aviv. So we need to be investing in a lot of assets from scratch. That's going to take a long time to secure those borders. We might be needing some help. I think if I could add something to the transitional plan, I would be asking Americans to come into Iran and just have some American bases for a short while before we get everything in order. Like I know a lot of Iranians would get, don't want that, but I honestly think that's necessary.
You guys need
Like
like
go,
a wall between you and Pakistan and Afghanistan.
yeah, it
Did
is like yeah.
did you make that suggestion to the author of the plan? Did you speak to him at all about that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we have been talking about that in many of our shows. I mean, not on the show because them saying yes or no to it will not look good, right? If they say yes, they're like, you want American boots on the ground. If you say no, like, oh, so you're anti-American as the rest of them. Like, so it's better not to ask that question from the Pahlavi's team on the show. But Gary has some opinions on this.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're going to get your wish because the uranium mines in Baluchistan and in southern Khorasan provinces are going to be guarded by U.S. CENTCOM
Yeah.
for as long as they need to be decommissioned.
Are you sure about that?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Well, I mean, I hope so. I don't know how that's going to be perceived. I don't know how Americans will tolerate that. Like, do you think American voters would tolerate American? Like, oh my God, you said no boots on the ground, and this is boots on the ground.
So the good news is that there's that place in New York on the East River. It's got a blue emblem. It's called the United Nations. You've heard of them? Yeah, so the International Atomic Energy Agency will be the guys that really will control those sites. And that will make it more palatable, but the firepower will be American to make sure no looters come in.
Yeah,
That's what
but
happened.
again,
That's what happened in
how
Iraq.
how is America going to sell this to American voters and taxpayers?
Oh, in terms of decommissioning all the Iranian nuclear sites, that won't be a tough sell in the United States.
No, regarding having American soldiers there.
If they're there to decommission the nuclear sites, that's all the cover that Americans would need. Americans don't want any Iranian nuclear weapons or nuclear payloads being deliverable. Full stop. It's one of the few things Democrats and Republicans agree on.
Okay. So regarding the IPP and border security, let me give you the few things that they have mentioned about border security. By the way, Gary, thank you. I hope you're right. I just don't see it yet, but I hope you're right. Like that would be really good to see it. But let me just go back to that because I was bringing this up. I have all of this summarized somewhere for when people ask me. The transitional government will immediately reactivate the border guard command and deploy the regular army Artesh to secure all borders against instability and infiltration. Regional cooperation. So it establishes joint border commissions and 24/7 operation rooms with neighboring countries to monitor threats and prevent cross-border movement of armed groups. Again, I don't see how you do that with the Taliban, but okay. The plan shifts to a modern border security program using advanced surveillance technologies like drones and AI rather than just manpower. Zero tolerance for separatism. The new military is mandated to treat any ethnic or political efforts to partition the country as a national security threat. So that's in there. By the way, if that was not in there, a lot of Iranians will basically give up on the transitional government. This is the highest priority. This is the holiest thing for Iranians. The border integrity is sacred for Iranians, more important than anything else. I would say secularism, keeping Islam out of government, comes second to preserving Iran's border security. That's how important it is. Border
That's
integrity.
a point to answer that question then. Ending it with that. Next, we have Hila.
First of all, the UN is a joke. Whatever they say, think the opposite. They're lying all over. And I need my glasses to see what I wrote down. Okay. Oh, and about Iran, I will start from the end and then I go to the bottom. About Iran army, we will not leave an army. If there will be bombing, there's nothing left, okay? No storage, no nothing, no zero, zero, zero. That's another thing, I think. And about the plan, obviously the important stuff are secret. It's all supposed to be secret. It's supposed to be in the fog, all foggy. Nobody's supposed to know what the next move is, because then they will prepare to the next move. So it's kind of stupid to put everything out there for the public. I mean, the public has a right to know, but the public don't want to know everything. Okay, about what I wanted to say, it's the first thing we talked about, you and Gary, about what it's gonna be like. So I think it's gonna be somewhere between Nazi Germany and how we treated the Nazis, and like Sinwar and the tunnels in Gaza. In the end, he did a mistake. All the massive machinery and units didn't catch him. A random guy catch him because he made a mistake. So that's the end of like big threats. And about Eichmann, I wanted to say, for Jews, it was very important to hunt them down. But then when we caught them, we had a moral issue about how to deal with them. It was a big deal in Israel, the philosophic discussion about what to do and how. They chose they had a rally, who will guard them, and it's supposed to be like Yemenite Jews, not Ashkenazi Jews, so nobody can rage some revenge, rage something. They were extremely afraid somebody will kill him, poison him. The guy that was watching him, he used to taste his food every day to check that they didn't poison him. They were so afraid of revenge. They guard him for like 8 months during the trial, and then they scatter his ash in the sea, out of the territorial, the international water or whatever. So no site will be, so people will not come to see the site, like worshippers. So I think if it was that complicated for us, for this one guy to do it, and it was like a whole massive event, I think this is kind of what you will have to handle it, but in mass amount of people. I don't believe in blood on the hand. I don't think, I mean, I'm sorry. If you're a clerk and you just wrote the number, we don't count it. I mean, and yeah, I think the common person cannot kill even the most villain person. But I mean, the people that were involved, and this is what Israel was very afraid of, are going to do extreme stuff for what they saw, for what they've been done to, and for what they lost. And nobody's judging them. They just needed to protect Eichmann until they decided to kill him. It sounds stupid, but I mean, it was a reality. And I think it's a history lesson that Iranians can learn from. That's it.
Okay, next is Jason.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So, I want to go back to something that was said earlier about the blanket response of forgiveness. Knowing the doctrine of Islam, how can that be offered? Does that make sense?
So to see if I understand you, you're saying that after the Islamic Republic falls, after the revolution, how could the Iranian people offer, like, how could Princess of Pahlavi talk about giving a blanket statement, blanket forgiveness to people from the regime, from among the people from the regime that don't have blood on their hands because of Islam,
Correct.
because of their, okay. So what do you mean? I still don't understand, because how
Okay.
would them being Islamic mean that we cannot give them a blanket forgiveness?
So my views on Islam, on Muslims, is I don't trust anything that comes from Islam.
Right.
With the amount of killing that's going on,
Mhm.
how can you trust that these people are going to push away what they were already doing and come to the right side?
Well, I mean, anybody who has been killing the Iranian people would not be forgiven and would be brought to justice. We're specifically talking about anybody that hasn't been involved in killing Iranians, right? And the reason why Princess of Pahlavi says that is because we've learned from the experience in Iraq that with the de-Baathification after the fall of Saddam, that basically trying to remove anybody that was involved in the government will create so much chaos and destabilization that it will create a power vacuum. We saw that happening in Iraq, right? So many people who are working in the regime, the people who are basically doing the filing, the people who are basically cleaning, I don't know, the office, like the people who are, just a programmer, the accountant, you can't get rid of all of those people. Even if they're working for the Islamic Republic, you just have to forgive them and let them continue to do the work, because the whole thing will fall apart. When it comes to trusting Islam and Muslims, I think it's important for us to separate Islam and Muslims from each other. Islam is a vile, disgusting, barbaric religion, and it should never be trusted. It's like, I agree with that. But Muslims, there are many Muslims who are good people who wouldn't hurt a single person in their entire life. Like, just because Islam is vile, I agree with that. But many Muslims are working, like, there's two programmings. There's Islamic programming, and then there is your human programming. And I think many Muslims are running under human programming more than they're running under Islamic programming. So you cannot just completely dismiss somebody just because they're Muslim as somebody that cannot be trusted, right?
Okay. So my sister, she's Muslim, and she's not Shia, she's Sunni. They follow the same book. And this is a general question. They follow the same book. So how can you trust one and not the other if they follow the same teachings?
Because most Muslims don't follow the Quran. Most Muslims
Okay.
say they follow the Quran, but they don't really. Most Muslims have never read the Quran. Most Muslims, I know the Quran more than most Muslims do. Most Muslims
As
have
do
this.
I.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, like, even the ones who have read the Quran, they don't understand the Quran. Like, if most Muslims, for example, many, I mean, I don't know if it's most or not, but the Muslims I know, they never want to beat their wife. Like, they would never want to beat their wife. But the Quran clearly commands that you should be beating your wife, right? It clearly commands that, but they don't want to do that. So that's why I say most Muslims are better than Islam. Most
Okay.
Muslims are better than Islam, right? And they don't understand it. Even if they do understand, if somebody tried to explain it to them, if they understand it, they would leave it. Or if it is too hard for them to give up on their Muslim identity, they will somehow convince themselves that it doesn't say the thing that you're telling them that it says.
Okay. That was very helpful, man. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I appreciate that. If you have more Islamic questions, please ask me, because I've been debating against Islam. I've been fighting Islam. By the way, I also think that one of the best ways to fight Islam is to befriend Muslims, right? Because if you try to be anti-Muslim, that actually feeds into Islam. The more Muslims feel isolated, the more Muslims feel attacked, the more that they basically are just, they're going to be in their own groups communicating with each other. You need to, if you want to convince people out of Islam, you need to bring their guards down, right? So to bring their guards down, you need to befriend them and talk to them like your fellow human beings. So befriending Muslim is actually the best way to fight Islam.
Okay. By the way, I'm not anti-Muslim. It was just, I wanted somebody's opinion as to how they view it, and you gave me that. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, next is Hassan.
Hassan. Oh, which Hassan?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, my favorite Hassan. Okay, there you go.
Oh, that's very kind of you, Armin. So I just wanted to say, Shauna was making a point earlier about the Pakistanis being an impediment to the toppling of the Iranian regime. The sense that I get here in Pakistan is that the Pakistani state will not be in any ways an impediment to the toppling of Iranian regime. But the problem is that because of how prominent anti-Semitism and anti-Americanism in the Pakistani society, how pervasive those two problems are, the Pakistani state doesn't want to be seen to be helping Israelis or the Americans like kinetically. That's kind of like how it is. So in areas where there are votes in the UN, for example, Pakistan would vote in a way that would make it appear that okay, we're against this, but they're basically just trying to contain a reaction in the Pakistani society where people will say that okay, you are helping the Americans, you're helping the Israelis topple the regime. And also the other concern, like Armin and Mr. Gary mentioned about the Baloch separatism. These are important problems that the Pakistani state is quite worried about. And since Gary said that there will be some UN-backed troops on the ground taking care of border integrity, actually Pakistan would more or less, at least the sense I get is that Pakistan will be there for help. Actually, will actually help whatever forces are present on the ground to help them ensure that there are no spillovers. Thank you very much.
Okay. I have a couple of questions. Oh, but Gary, you have some questions yourself, your opinions?
Yeah, Hassan, thanks for that. And two points about Pakistan. So what you mentioned about the UN, and it's not border integrity in Iran, it is the nuclear sites integrity. So
Okay.
the UN would not be enforcing, and the United States would not be enforcing Iranian border security. That would be strictly an Iranian matter. It's
Okay,
just the
that's
nuke
good.
sites. I do want to point out one thing that some people may have missed. So at the time that there was the exchange going on between Israel and Iran prior to the June 14th, 15th attacks directly on Iran, the government of Pakistan offered to give Iran a nuclear weapon that they could then launch at Israel. And they made that
Oh, really?
pronouncement. They made that pronouncement publicly.
Wait, when
Personally,
was this?
that was,
In
remember
June?
when Israel and Iran were having the exchange before the June 14th, 15th direct bombing in Iran?
I thought that was not real news. I thought that the Islamic
Oh,
Republic made that up.
no.
The one where Israel hit some Iranian guy in Lebanon or something, and then Iran launched a bunch of rockets, and then Israel took out their defenses, right?
Wait, you're saying Pakistan offered nuclear weapons to the Islamic Republic? Am I hearing this right? I think I'm
You
mishearing
are
this.
hearing that correctly. That was confirmed.
Gary, I'm pretty sure you have good source on what you're saying, and I'm not at all doubting it. But if that were true, I don't think that the relationships between the Pakistani state these days and the US will be where they are. They would be very shaky, and you just wouldn't have let that kind of thing slide. At least that's what my, thing is. But I'm pretty sure what you're saying, you have better sources than me, or you're better connected.
Why do you think I'm always
Probably not
bringing up
then.
Pakistan and my fear of Pakistan having nukes? I'm like,
Right.
Like, isn't like Gary? Wouldn't that be like a international emergency? That if that something like that was offered, was that like a serious offer, or was there just some unimportant person from the government? Like, wouldn't that be like okay, like that would be the end of relation? I don't understand how this
Exactly.
was not a
Yeah.
bigger deal.
Because everyone's too stupid to realize how bad the Islamic Republic gang nukes are.
No, they're
Yeah.
not stupid. They have the best intelligence in the world. See,
Actually, America is pretty concerned about these things. Nuclear proliferation is exactly why they're doing this whole thing in the first
so
place.
let's hear
Yeah.
what Gary has to say. How come this did not become a bigger deal after this? So Gary.
Shortly thereafter, there was a rapprochement between the United States and the government of Pakistan, where there was a much closer and warmer public persona on the face of that relationship that was duly noted within the inner circles within the United States. When Pakistan said that, that would be really, so I'll just give you my background just a little bit. I'm just a simple country organ transplant specialist, and I was part of a group that provided information to the U.S. Department of Defense after 9/11, when the concern was not about planes flying into buildings, it was planes dropping nuclear waste as dirty bombs over U.S. cities in follow-up. So that was something that was classified back then, but that's not classified any longer. That's the big concern that there is from Homeland Security and U.S. Department of Defense and Intelligence, and that is partly what underlies the USA Patriot Act, is the concern of nuclear events on U.S. soil. When it comes to Pakistan, there are many concerns, as you've all rightly pointed out. The thought of a nuclear detonation on any country's soil in the world is the primary mission of the U.S. Department of Energy, and also a very important mission for the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. There is no more important mission from many of their perspectives to preventing a nuclear detonation on U.S. soil with a nuclear weapon that's brought in, or with radioactive materials being brought in. This is something that we're very, very well defended against. So with all of that as background, whenever something is said, like when MBS a few weeks ago said, we don't have to have a nuclear development program, we can just buy one from Pakistan. He said that approximately 3 weeks after Pakistan offered the Islamic Republic of Iran one nuclear weapon to attack Israel with. These are not isolated events, and these are things that do not go unnoticed by U.S. government circles, both at the State Department, Department of Homeland Security, or Department of Energy. So I can't speak to why people are not aware of that, but those two events, when Crown Prince MBS said he could just buy one from Pakistan, and Pakistan offering to give one to Iran to use against Israel, these are not viewed as separate events. They're viewed as reasons to send more American diplomats and other people with persuasive powers to Pakistan to create a new public relationship.
Gary, can you answer, please, sir? How on earth did they even get to go nuclear? I mean, we're worried about Iran, which we should be, but were they just flying under the radar? Like, did everybody just let this happen?
No, the Americans
Israel,
gave them their nuclear capacity. We did.
wait, Israel wanted to bomb them at some point, but they were stopped.
Who are we talking about now?
The Pakistanis.
Like I said,
no, that's not correct.
No, that's
Pakistan
not
Stole
correct,
that nuclear
Susanna.
technology from
No.
India, who developed it organically.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
organic.
Pakistan gained nuclear weapons and nuclear technology directly from the Chinese, the Russians, and the final pieces were from North Korea, not from anything from the United States.
And is it true that Israel at some point wanted to blow it up, and they were getting ready to go blow it up?
I'm not familiar with that.
But I'm sorry, my question is, who let it happen? Because the US did not let countries go nuclear if they don't want to. So who was in charge specifically?
Well, North Korea, I believe, has a lot of nuclear weapons, and nobody let them have it happen. It happened in the midst of frozen diplomacy between the United States, Russia, and China. This is not, the United States doesn't control everybody's behavior on the planet of Earth. When North Korea became a nuclear power, President Clinton and his predecessor and the person who came after him were very much read into the situation, but frozen diplomacy prevented definitive intervention. When it came to Pakistan, now you're talking about back in the early 1970s. I think it was around 70 or 72, somewhere in there. Somebody can correct me though, but this was a very, very different situation.
It was well after that because in 1971 we had a war with India, and at that point in time we were not nuclear.
When was it, Hassan? I apologize.
I think it was we detonated a nuclear bomb. I think in the Washer, right? It would be 1990s, sometime around 1990s. Yep.
Oh, really? It was that
So,
late? Wow. How
Yep.
time
so
flies.
let me read this for just a second. So it says in the early 1980s, Israel planned a preemptive airstrike on Pakistan's nuclear research facility to prevent the country from developing nuclear weapons. Israel approached India to collaborate on this mission, specifically requesting permission to use Indian airspaces for refueling. However, the plan was aborted because the Indian government refused to cooperate, fearing that such a strike would trigger a full scale war or nuclear retaliation from Pakistan. Additionally, the US exerted diplomatic pressure to stop the operation. So Susie is a little bit correct because Americans stopped the Israelis, like they didn't give them the nuclear weapon, but they did stop the Israelis from stopping the Pakistanis from removing their nuclear weapons. So in that,
I went to go look up what I was talking about. I was misremembering details about some
yeah.
crazy backstabbing that happened with the Pakistani ISI. So I was
Right.
misremembering some details with some ISI
Yeah.
BS.
But you are accidentally, indirectly correct.
Say
Susanna,
something
just
here.
so you know,
I'm sorry.
the ISI's official emblem is the back of somebody with a knife going into it. So you're right on. You're spot on.
Oh, dude, I mean, what they did in the
Wait, really?
Bombay hotel attack and all that shit, we had a US asset turn against us. It's a whole thing. Let me stop.
Yeah.
Okay, we have
Sorry.
to put
Can
Susie
I,
is mostly right on the sleeve of the Armin and Goldie shirt.
Hey, wait, by the way, that's yeah. Okay, so by the way, Gary, I just wanted to mention this. Can you explain this to me? Because what I'm reading, it says there's no evidence Pakistan offered a finished nuclear weapon to the Islamic Republic. However, Pakistan, specifically the AQ Khan network, did sell the Islamic Republic the critical technology, blueprints, and equipment centrifuge necessary to build one. That was very
right.
far back. So it
Yes.
says, I don't know. Maybe I'm asking Gemini. Gemini is saying there's no evidence that Pakistan offered a finished nuclear weapon to. Maybe you have
I,
information that is not public, Gary.
I would never share information that's not public.
Okay. Okay. Well, can you like as if you send that to me because that's a big deal. Like if you could send that to me, that would be like or post it in the community tab. All right.
I'll do that.
I know we've been staying here for a long time, but I'm just gonna ask one question from Hassan because I'm really glad he's here, and then I ask him, and then we'll move on. Sorry, BT. So Hassan, I have this thing with when it comes to discussing Pakistan, and I don't know how to manage this, and I wanted your advice, right? So I keep talking about Pakistan as a shithole, like because of Islam poverty and inbreeding. But I also don't want to be insulting to all of our heroes in Pakistan, the secular activists, the ex-Muslims, the atheists, and all the people in Pakistan with the proper value on our side. So like, how do I manage this? I mean, is this as somebody like what do you think? Like, because I think like the Pakistan is a failed state. The government at least is a failed state, in my opinion, or or becoming one at least.
Armin's like, how
And I
can I
also,
shit on your country but respectfully?
yeah,
yeah.
how could I shit on your how could I well, not, I mean, should I, how could I shit on at least at the government, at the military, and the Islamization, and the fact
Right.
that
Right.
Pakistan has been hit with the three curses of Islam, poverty, and inbreeding, without losing the amazing people from Pakistan who are on the right side?
So, Armin, really, all I can say here is that I think you know better than anyone else, I think, over here, how, when Islam takes over a country, it can kind of like numb the people to, they don't really know what the things they're endorsing, just out of the religious upbringing and things like that. They don't quite know that. You just mentioned how Muslims are better than Islam, and you're actually kind of spot on with that. And the fact that most Muslims don't even know what's written in the Quran, right? These are important points, and I would really appeal again to your sense of empathy. That Pakistanis are a diverse people, 240 million people. And yes, there is a breakdown in terms of how the economy is doing, and just a general society-wide, like there is it's an impoverished country. These things are all true, and a lot of it is to be blamed down to the fact that Islam has more or less like the people here, they have been made into anti-Semites and anti-Americanism. Also, part of the reason why Pakistan has such high levels of anti-Semitism and anti-Americanism is, I don't mean to say it like Iranians are responsible for it, but a lot of it came from
Yep.
Iran itself. And I don't mean to say in the sense that you guys are to
No.
blame for that. No, this is a regional problem. If you really look at it, it is essentially a regional problem. This kind of thing you'll see even in Turkey. Turkey has a lot of anti-Semitism, right? So, these are values that this is part of the reason why I'm cheering on the Iranian cause, because, once you people have set an example of, how a society moves forward when it's tied down by all these factors, like especially Islam and just this top-down authoritarianism. Once you guys break that, it's going to set an example in the region for the region to move forward. So I say that be empathetic and just generally approach this matter with
But
somewhat nuance.
yeah, go on. Sorry, finish, and then because I have a problem, but trying to
Yeah,
do
sure,
that.
sure. You can go ahead. Go ahead. You can say what you have to say.
So my issue is, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, is that when it comes to Iran, it seems like the Iranian people have reached a level of understanding regarding the correct values, and that I don't see that in Pakistan or in Afghanistan. Like I think, like correct me if I'm wrong, but in Iran, the problem is the regime. The solution are the people. But in Pakistan, unlike people like yourself, the problem comes from a huge portion of the people. Is that correct, or is that a
That's actually a
misunderstanding?
matter of fact. That's actually a
Okay.
matter of fact. But I would say this one thing. I have lived my whole life in this country. I'm currently here. I do not plan to leave the country. One of the things that I am seeing here is a very positive change in society. And I've seen it happen in the last 10 years or so. There are improvements, especially as people aren't as poor as they used to be. And that's had a huge impact on some of the more regressive thoughts. Right now, I think the most extreme people inhabit areas that border Afghanistan. Afghanistan is currently exporting essentially a lot of militant Islam into Pakistan, and because the regions that border Pakistan have this, language similarities with them. So a lot of ideas travel, fast, and they kind of stay contained over there in that region. So in mainland Pakistan, especially in Punjab, and big urban centers, they're actually moving forward, and I see positive trends. So you're right about this. That true. It's a bottom up pressure in terms of like how society kind of wants and likes Islamic system of governance. So they kind of like endorse it. Even though they would, if it's imposed of them, they would probably rebel. Pakistanis, for example, almost always reject religious parties. If you look at the Pakistani election results, religious parties almost always contest elections, but they are almost always not given enough seats in the parliament. In fact, very little seats, if any, to form any kind of meaningful force in the parliament of Pakistan. So, what I'm trying to say here is that there is reason to be hopeful. And yeah, even I'm doing whatever little I can to talk to people here, get a sense of what they think. And I've seen improvements, is all I'm going to say right
Well,
now.
stay safe.
And oh yeah, of course. I take this approach of not being very harsh, or I just try and be empathetic because I've been there. I was a Muslim one, so I've been there. I know how it can be. I try and have conversations as thoughtfully as I can, as empathetically as I can. But I see positive trends. That's all I'm gonna say here. And we need people like you, yourself, and other people who can approach this topic with some empathy, because you can almost never convert, or you can never really insult people out of bad ideas. You kind of have to talk it out of them with respect. And if you cannot be at least respectful, you have to be like at least make your point with empathy. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
probably what
Well,
I'm gonna say.
thank you
Nice
for that
nice
insight.
chat. Nice
Yeah,
chat.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
after the recording, after Armin leaves and the recording is done, but maybe before he leaves, I have a question, and I would love for Gary and Hassan to chime in if either of you feel compelled, just FYI. So next we have Francesco.
Betty, if you want, you can ask it now before I. Okay. There has been a lot of things during the since when I raised my hand. First of all, I think it is in the US interest to back up Pakistan, because the strategy of the US, for what I read, is to balance the power of India with Pakistan and the power of China with India. And also there was, I don't know, financing the Mujahideen, anti-communist, so there was like an history there. And now with the war in Afghanistan, so Pakistan has been helpful logistically and supported a bit the USA in this fight. But it seems strange to me, and I would like to ask Gary this. It looks like a bit of a fish market for nukes when it comes to negotiation, like should I give you a nuke? Why don't Pakistan just proceed with that and also buy nuke? Like the Saudis asking that they can buy it. For me, these public statements are more like an indication for negotiation tactics. So they want something from the United States, so they threaten to give nukes away. But I want to hear your thoughts on. Gary?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think the IRGC was trying to keep me on mute. It's a great question that you pose. There are people who have killed people with their own bare hands, and there are people who have never done that. Then, when you look at the world, there are those countries that have nuclear weapons and those that don't have nuclear weapons. Fortunately, there are only a few countries that actually have nuclear weapons. I will tell you from personal experience about something called the Radiation Effects Research Foundation. It was created in the aftermath of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And the people who survived, and there were many survivors after both attacks, the people that survived were followed longitudinally until death because of what the US Army did in conjunction with the Red Cross and other groups. Nuclear weapons and their use is not world ending. It is world altering, but it's not world ending. And weapons that size, like the 10 to 15 kilotons that you saw in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, those are very tiny in comparison to what exists out there. Whenever a country such as Pakistan or India, when they're facing off each other at borders and they both have comparable size nuclear arsenals, there's a certain soberness there and a certain amount of respect that you pay to them just because they have those weapons. I don't know quite how to characterize it other than that.
The thing is, why don't they just act and they threaten to act or announce giving weapons or buying them? Like, why don't they just, act instead of making it public? Like, for me, I'm surprised by the fact that the Islamic Republic doesn't have a nuke already given.
Well, so they do have enough fissile material in the Islamic Republic of Iran. They have enough fissile material for 12 of them the size of Hiroshima and Nagasaki weapons. Whether or not they have them weaponized, nobody can say for sure right now. But beyond that, if you're seeing something in print, in media, about somebody offering to give somebody a nuclear weapon, you don't know for sure if that is a counterintelligence operation being run by one intelligence service or another against another country. You can't tell that. But what I can tell you is that countries with nuclear weapons discuss transferring that information and even their materiel to other countries not infrequently. That is a fact of life.
Can I just add?
And if I just one last point on that, and there have been times where it's come close to coming to fruition, and people have died because of those mistakes that they were offering.
Wait, Francisco, you're saying you're surprised that the Islamic Republic doesn't already have nuclear weapons? Is that what you said?
That somebody didn't smuggle them yet.
Yeah.
Or yeah.
Well, I mean, because I mean, the Islamic Republic has gotten close to having nuclear weapons multiple times, which was stopped every single time by Israelis because they're watching everything. The only reason why the Islamic Republic is not a nuclear power right now is because of Israel. They would
Yeah,
have.
but if Pakistan threatens to give it away, or so that's like a lot of potential for just smuggling.
I don't. Again, I think like U.S. intelligence and Israeli intelligence is observing that all the time and stopping. Like, I mean, this is such an important threat that they would not let that happen. I don't think they would let that happen.
Yeah, that's
Eh,
great.
So, any of you take a look at those pictures of Mars that come back from NASA and ESA? They're pretty remarkable, aren't they? Yeah, so the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter was outfitted in conjunction between ESA and NASA, but mostly European Space Agency. But the Royal Astronomy Academy or Astronomical Academy in the UK, there are not many things that the UK does right anymore. But one thing they do right is in terms of intelligence and the ability to detect things from space. So they created a capability where, not only can the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter go down to about 6 centimeters per pixel, but they can also detect very, very low levels of radiation on the surface of Mars. And by extension, they can do the same on Earth. So you remember a few months ago when, I guess it was June, when there were those 30 or 35 Earth movers worth of big trucks backing up to all the major Iranian nuclear facilities? Every single one of those trucks was followed, and they knew exactly how much radiation was being emitted by each one of those trucks. It's very hard to hide radiation,
That's super
especially
interesting.
when you're an amateur trying to transport it.